You know that feller can count backwards?
I don't
Counts backwards better than I count forward.
I can't count forward.
I don't know. Some people like to count backwards, I reckon. I know they used to do that on Saturday morning. They'd sit down in these recliners and they'd say 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, blast off, and then they'd shake.
There you go.
No, now you're talking about Heckle and Jekyll. They come on about 11:30, I think.
I used to watch the Heckle and the Jekyll.
You remember Rough and Ready?
Yeah.
Rough and Ready went to this here other planet one time. It was holler. I mean, it didn't have no inside joints, you know.
Right.
And it was made out of aluminum.
Right.
And the strangest thing was, it was really called Mooney Moolah. You know, that's aluminum spelled backwards.
Right. Okay.
Just coincidentally, you know.
Yeah, I got that. I remember that.
And old Jinx, he used to hate them Macy's to pieces. Is oftener a word?
Huh?
Ike asked me today, is oftener a word?
Austin.
Is oftener a word?
I don't know.
And then you'd have to have oftenest, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I reckon you would. You know, talking about a planet being holler, you know, did you watch any of the debate?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, well.
I watched it all. Pretty good, wasn't it?
Well, you know, Biden's going to do away with the oil.
Yeah. I don't know how he's going to keep stuff from sticking to the pan, do you?
It's kind of hard to do, you know, but I was just thinking, you know, you have all these black holes out there in the universe where you've had planets and other things to explode and then shrink within themselves, you know. How small did it say the Earth would be if it did that, or the size of a golf ball, a softball?
Well, they claim the whole universe was at one time in a little thing about that big. And you know what? Well, before that?
Nothing.
There's nothing. Just happened that way. Just
Okay.
a ping pong ball out there just turned into everything. And it done it. It went everywhere all at once, and then it slowed down.
Right. But I was just thinking, you know, I believe these planets do explode, you know, and contract.
Well, I think the stars explode or implode.
Okay, well, it depends. A star a lot of times has no light itself.
Yeah, they start out, and then when they burn up all their nuclear fuel, they shrink.
Right.
And if they're the right size and the right conditions, they just keep shrinking till they just turn the wrong side out, you know.
I reckon, but...
and then everything falls into them.
What I was looking at, you know, using the energy from oil, which has been stored in this earth since its beginning.
Well, I don't know. I'd be arguing that some of it is being made as we go along.
Well, I really think that we probably, with the earth being 2/3 water and all them little planktons are dying and sinking to the bottom and turning into oil, I think we might be making more oil than we're using.
Now, a feller told me one time that whenever you burn oil, you didn't lose anything, just got the heat out of it.
That's all you got. You know,
so everything that you need to make it again is there, and if you can manage to get it down to the center of the earth, you can do it again, because they say it's hot down there.
Well, I understand that, but, you know, to me, you know, one of the axioms that we live by is that matter cannot be created, nor can it be destroyed.
That's true, but it can be changed into energy.
Well, I don't know whether the matter...
yes, sir.
The matter itself.
That's what you get whenever you have a nuclear explosion. You have a transference of matter into energy in small quantities. It just takes a little bit because you got to multiply it by the constant C, which is 186,280.
Right.
You got to square it times that.
Right.
So it just takes a little bit, you know.
They say pi are square too.
They say they are.
I always thought pi was round.
No, that's cornbread.
Okay, all right. Well, you know, I don't think he's.
That just shows how ignorant you are, Bob. Everybody knows pi r squared.
You know, if we can come up with some way to, say, alter the residue of using fossil fuels, I think we ought to use them from now on.
Well, I think it's pretty good to do away with that there oil. You can make a fortune dealing in Russia, and you don't have to have. I mean, $3.5 million from the First Lady of Moscow.
Right. Well, you know, and Joe Biden knows nothing about that.
I know, poor feller.
He knows nothing about the $10 million deal they were negotiating with China for access to him.
Well, he's poor feller. He's been in the basement all summer.
Right.
Did you see how pale he looked? They talk about the orange, man. It wouldn't hurt Joe to get out and get a little sunshine.
I would think so, you know.
That's the gray man.
But Biden has been up there 47 years, and Trump has done more in 47 months than Biden has done in his entire 47 years. And when I say he's done as much, Trump has done good things, good things.
What gets me is Biden has never had to meet a payday in his life.
He's never had a job other than it was public service.
I know. Not that I know of anyway. And you don't know what it's like till you get out there and try to make yourself a living and have enough money to pay your help.
Well, that's true, and to feed your family and to educate your family and do that sort of thing, you know. And Biden and the entire Democratic structure has been so anti business, small business especially, and they will eat the big business up. You know, Joe Biden's main contributor has been Wall Street.
Well, I'm kind of tired of all them crooks myself, but the feller's been in that business for 47 years needs to go to the house and stay.
I think he needs to go to the basement, you know, just build him a man cave down there. And,
back to the basement.
Yeah, and stay down there, I really do.
All right, Big Mabel Murphy by
But,
Sue
you know,
Thompson.
someone told
Playing on
me
YouTube Music.
that...
I don't know about this stuff. Well, my phone has decided.
that it's going there in the
Big
conversation.
Mabel Murphy. I don't know how that come up. It heard me say something, and a Google Assistant decided to assist me. I like old Big Mabel Murphy.
Right. But, you know, this is going to be an interesting election because it's not going to be decided on November 3rd or November 4th or November 5th. It's going to take several weeks for them to make a decision as to...
Now, how long did it take them back in early days?
2000.
No,
Oh, you
I'm
mean
talking about back
when they were counting them by hand.
1789.
Well, that's
They had to.
probably the next day they were able to announce a
Well,
winner.
they couldn't announce a winner that quick because they couldn't communicate that fast.
Well, you had telegraph back in '89.
No, you didn't. Not 1789.
Well, 1789, no. But you didn't have a 13th stage.
Well, you may not have, but if you're down there in South Georgia and somebody else is up in Connecticut, it'd be hard for you fellas to talk to each other the same day.
Maybe they knew who was going to win before the election was
I
held.
don't think they know until they got all the things. See, they don't have to have a vote, but they have to have an electoral vote. They can
Right.
flip a coin if they want
Right.
to, legally. but I don't think they'd know till they got the electoral college to meet, and they'd all meet in Washington, so they'd know the day of the electoral vote who won. Of course, they'd probably have an idea who was going to win ahead of time, but that'd give them uncertainty for a month or two. What is it? About 6 weeks from the time they have the election till they have the electoral vote.
Well, don't they have it before the end of the year?
Yeah, they have it December the 20th, I believe, don't they?
Yeah.
Well, if we're going to have a vote on November the 3rd, and I ain't sure about that date, but that'd be about 6 weeks, 7 weeks maybe.
Right, well, it'd be 17 days plus 20, it'd be 37 days. That'd be about
5 weeks.
Just a little less than 6 weeks.
Well, that's probably what we'll have this year if we're lucky.
I don't know. Them hanging chads may get in the
Them
way.
pregnant chads what got me worried.
Yeah, me too. You know, back in 2000, before the election was even held, the Democrats started suing.
Yeah, I know it.
And so, well, it's going to be interesting, really.
Well, what else you been up to?
Well, nothing much. You know, I talked yesterday a little bit with you about Kamala Harris and her statements that closing the churches was just like a sacrifice we made during World War II. Well, she didn't live through World War II like I did.
Didn't live like I did either. I wasn't here.
Right, which I remember World War II very much. I had two brothers. One was serving in Europe and one was serving in the Pacific. The one in Europe got wounded, got the end of his nose shot off. That come pretty close. And
Yeah, that's getting right there where you at.
yeah, said that right. And then my brother in the Pacific was the commander of a PT boat. They wrote no books about him, but he had to be rescued twice where they shot them little wooden boats out from under him. So he got.
I had an uncle that lost a couple of ships. Well, he didn't lose them. They just lost herself. He had to swim a little.
Yeah, well, he did too. He got picked up by a submarine one time, and then I forget how else he got picked up.
I don't know whether I'd want to get on a submarine or not. I ain't cut out for that kind of business.
No, have you ever been in a submarine?
No, I guess I'll pass. I'd want to make sure it wasn't a fiction to go down.
Right. Now, when you visit down in North Carolina, down in Wilmington,
Yeah, I've been there.
have you ever been to visit the battleship North Carolina?
No, I may have seen it from the bank.
Right. That's an interesting experience. You know.
I was somewhere one time. I don't remember where I was at. I may have been in South Carolina. I seen a big old ship they had tied up there, but it's complicated to go see it, and I didn't go.
Right. Yeah, I've been on the U.S. North Carolina, and
I've been down there to Fort Sumter
have you?
and St. Augustine, the fort there.
Right.
That's Spanish fort.
Right. St. Augustine's the oldest city in North America.
I know it, and Grantsburg's the oldest town in Campbell County.
All right.
And you're the oldest resident. Well, no, I guess you ain't.
Not quite, but you know, I looked in the obituaries,
Every day?
which I do make sure I'm not in there. You know, I haven't been in there as such, but I have got honorable mention.
Yeah,
a couple of
the
times.
rumors are just not true, though,
Yeah,
are they?
But
Exaggerated.
there was about 11 people that passed in the county in this recent obituary,
Yeah,
and every one of them was younger than me.
yeah, I know. You know, I'm not going to say the name because he's a good feller, but there's an old guy that I used to see right often, and I saw an obituary. He had died, and I didn't see him more for, you know, he just wasn't around. He dead. And I was here one day, and he come in. I hadn't seen him 6 or 8 years at the earliest. And I said, I read in the paper where you died. And he said, that wasn't me. That's another feller, same name. Well, I was happy to see him. We visited a while. And then about 2 or 3 months later, I read in the paper where he died.
Right.
Well, another week or two, he come walking in again. I said, I guess that died in the paper wasn't you again, was it? And he said, no, it wasn't me. Well, a few months after that, I read it again, and I'm taking it on faith that was him because I ain't seen him more. But that man, he died 3 times.
Well,
Same name. And what made it so believable is the first time he died, I didn't see him for years, and he'd moved somewhere. About the time that guy died.
That's about like a cat. We had a cat by the name of Junior.
Yeah.
And actually, my first wife, they had a cat at her mom and dad's house by the name of Junior. And one night we heard all kind of brakes and tires are squealing, and we went out there, and there Junior was run over.
Yeah.
So we took Junior out there and we buried him
Yeah.
in the garden. Next day, here Junior come up, rubbed himself up against our leg. We had buried somebody else's cat. It wasn't Junior.
Guy knocked on the door and said, "Have you got a cat? I've run over a cat." And the guy says, "Well, what's the cat look like?" And the fellow says, "Well, it's kind of flat." The guy says, "No, I mean, what did it look like before you run over it?" And he said,
Well, you know how to tell on the roadkill whether it's a possum or a politician, don't you?
One of them stinks.
Well, no, there's skid marks before the
Oh, yeah.
possum.
Hey, armadillos, they used to be around here nowhere, and I know they finally crossed the Mississippi River, but I didn't realize how close they got. I know they had them out in West Tennessee, but I was down around Spring City, which is about 50, 60 miles. It's about 50
There's
miles.
armadillos down there.
There was an armadillo down there dead beside the road.
How about that?
That's getting close.
I've
We'll
seen-
have possum on the half shell.
Yeah, I've seen them anyone in South Carolina and
Yeah.
Georgia and Florida,
But they didn't used to be on the east side of the Mississippi, and then they didn't used to be this far north, and they'll be here at any time, according to that, because I could walk to Spring City and if I was young and then start early.
Couple of days.
Wouldn't take that long. You could, yeah. I guess a guy'd have to rest on the way down there, but it's about 50 miles.
Right.
I don't know how fast the armadillo walks. If he's determined to get here, he'd be here in a week or two,
Right.
surely.
Probably could.
I don't know why he'd want to come. We're so thick with them Yankees that he won't go back down to Georgia.
I can remember when there were no coyotes in this section of the country either.
Yep.
And now they're pretty prevalent. I was going out.
They thin out them cats, so.
I was going out Sugar Holler one day, and the fellows pulled over there and had his rifle out there, and he was on his cell phone, and they were trying to get a pack of coyotes that were molesting their cattle.
Yeah.
And so I stopped and asked him what he's doing. He said there's supposed to be a pack of coyotes heading this way, and he was ready for them.
Well, they was a farmer, Ernest and Sharp. I didn't see it, but he caught something when he's in a trap, or in his barn. I think he hemmed it up in his barn, and he had it there in the barn stable. And back when I was about 10 years old, and he didn't know what it was, and other people went and looked at it, and I don't know whether he ever killed it. I think it was after his chickens or something, and he managed to catch it. And I think everybody kind of agreed it was a coyote. But I never seen one. until 1976. There, right where his farm was, we had a real cold winter that winter. That's whenever the world was gonna die because
freeze to death,
yeah, that's when they were gonna drop that coal dust up in the Arctic and melt the snow caps. But he was. We was going home and it had been below zero. I mean below freezing for about 2.5 weeks. So it ground hard and the little snow had lingered on and it was just not a good place to be out living in the wild. And me and my mother was driving out through there. And I saw the awfulest looking, ugliest looking thing I ever saw in my life there. It looked like a big, mangy fox. And I wasn't sure what it was. I still don't know, but evidently it was just a scrawny, hungry coyote.
Right.
And now they're thick. There's plenty of them now.
Right.
They move around.
I was sitting over in the industrial park in Clinton, and I saw a couple of things that I hadn't seen before. I used to work over there, and about every day I would see a coyote cross that road, same speed, just same speed all the way out through there. It never increased, never spooked or anything. And then there was a bunch of deer that would come up to that, like a pasture up there where they had all them buildings.
Yeah.
And those deer would tease the dogs.
Yeah.
There was a bunch of 3 or 4 dogs there, and the dogs would chase them, and the dogs would give out and lay down. The deers would come back around and tease the dogs again and try to get them to chase them. And I witnessed that several times, and I can remember, in all honesty, as a young boy, there was no deer at all in the part of the country that I was raised in. Now it is just loaded with deer.
Yeah, you wreck if you ain't careful, run over them. You were talking about seeing that coyote cross slow and easy every time, and I remembered I lived off campus over UT for 3 years, and the way I drove to school, and they've completely redone that place now, but I'd drive down Western Avenue and cross on 17th Street and then on over to school.
Right.
And there's a corner there of 17th and Western Avenue. And I had just timed out when I was going, there was this same drunk there on the corner. And what caught my eyes, he wore a suit coat, a dress coat, had some ratty spots in it.
Right.
Needed a patch or two, and he was all daddied up, and you could tell he was either a little drunk or a whole lot hung over, because the way he walked, he'd walk real straight and proud. And what got my attention is just about 2 or sometimes 3 times a week, he'd be waiting on that corner. And he was colorblind or dumb, one, I don't know which, because he'd stand there and wait. I'd pull up there and the light would be red, and he'd stand there on that corner till the light turned green, and then he'd cross. And I had to wait on that drunk 2 or 3 times a week, going to strut on across the road. Well, at that time, there was classes at UT on Saturday, and we went half a day, and of course in engineering, they's the only ones got stuck with going on Saturday. And over there on the hill is the engineering section over there, and right there, that was above where Neyland Stadium is. And at that time, they didn't have them skyscraper
Boxes.
Yeah, so you could see into the ball field there from up there beside of the road there on the hill, except there was a chain link fence there and had vines growing on it. And I come out there, and every Saturday, it was awful trying to find a place to park. I'd have to park over downtown and walk over there to get to school.
Right.
And them people just everywhere and paying big money for them seats and everything. I come out of my class had stopped at 12 o'clock and going down through there, and there sat my drunk. He was just sitting there in the grass, and he had a box seat there in the grass, and he had the vines tore off of the fence, and he was just sitting there ready to watch the ball game. He just as happy as he'd have been up there in the skybox and done it for free.
And he did it for a whole lot less, too.
Oh, yeah, I know. Yeah. So I'm thinking, you know, these big shots down there, and I couldn't afford nothing like they was spending, but they spent more for hot dogs than I'd have to play on all week. But they're down there, and this old drunk's done got it figured out. He's sitting there, and he had kind of a pea green jacket, and he didn't wear a tie, but he had that dress coat on, and there was it must have been wool, and it looked like the goat had been chewing on it in a place or two.
Right.
I don't know whatever happened to him, but he's my favorite drunk. He's kind of like Otis. You remember Otis, don't you?
Yeah.
Okay.
He was a Campbell.
Yeah, you know, he was, you know why he was a town drunk?
He was a designated.
Well, what it was, his daddy died, and Otis became the town drunk. I remember Danny Thomas asked Andy, well, what was this grief? Is that what done it? No, his daddy was a town drunk, and he just kind of carried on the tradition. It was left to him, carry on the family name. Me and Sam went down to Taco Bell today, and we got some of them there Taco Supremes, and they come in 3-packs. And we got 6 Taco Supremes,
Right.
2 of us, and they give us 1 napkin. You know, you go around, they give us 1 napkin, and we was making out pretty good as they're trading it out, you know, and as they're getting kind of soppy, but I blew my nose on it, and she made me go get another.
I can't understand that. Well, I had an uncle that was
That's almost the truth.
a drunk, and he was quite a character.
Yeah.
And he got drunk one night, and they had our community was kind of quiet and sedate bedroom area for Greensboro,
Yeah.
and everybody owned their own home and kept their yard nice, you know, and went to church on Sunday and everything. Well, this guy came in from the Midwest and bought a little old service station there on the corner and started selling beer out in the county.
Yeah.
Started doing all sorts of things that was a little bit considered uncouth for that area. He built a bunch of cheap houses to rent. I mean,
Yeah.
he called it Richardson Visit. It was Pop Richardson was his name. And Pop built a drinking place, and he called it Chuckle Inn. So we called it Chuckle In and Wobble Out. Well, they had an upstairs where the only people that could go up there were couples, okay? And my uncle come in there drunk one night, and he wanted to go upstairs. He saw them women going up, and they said, no, we don't allow no stags. He said, don't you call me no damn stag. He got in a fight, and they threw him out.
Yeah.
So about the time they threw him out, these guys that had just been playing fast pitch softball pulled up, and they had all their equipment in the back.
Uh-oh.
My Uncle George, he got him one of them bats, and he went back into Chuckle Inn and made his way up the stairs. And I don't know how many people he brained. Well, they only had one telephone. That was across the road at the service station. So they called the sheriff's department. And they knew who my uncle was. He was down here with a baseball bat, clearing everybody out. Well, they came, and George heard the sirens coming. So Chuckle Inn was located about probably 300 yards to the east of North Buffalo Creek.
East of North Buffalo Creek.
Right, east
okay.
of North Buffalo Creek. Well, North Buffalo Creek was
Man, need a compass, sir.
it was a septic tank for Cone Mill Corporation.
Yeah.
And it was at that time, this was in the 50s,
Yeah, you could walk
it
across
was
it.
full of dye.
Yeah.
I mean, it was the stinkingest thing. But I learned to swim in that creek, but it was a stinking place. Well, George took off down across there with the sheriff's department after him. He got up on the banisters of that bridge and jumped off in that creek, and they never caught him. He went to South Carolina, lived probably for 10 or 12 years, and then he come back up to my daddy's, drunk himself to death and died up there, and my daddy had to bury him. So,
And you know, me and my cousin was out running around one night. We was looking for somewhere to go, and there was a place down there in Oak Ridge we heard about. It was kind of a restaurant thing, and they played music, and so we decided we'd go, and we parked, and we walked. Couldn't park up close to park down here, and kind of walked up the hill, and right in front of us, going in the door, was this well-dressed, good-looking woman, and this guy that was, looking kind of spiffy. And they went in the door, and evidently they'd had trouble with that feller before. I don't know what was going on, but this couple went in there, and the door closed behind him. And we hear all this thumping. We're standing there, kind of looking at each other, and there's all this thumping and stuff, and these two bouncers walked him back out the door and turned him loose. And they turned and went back in, but they didn't get the door shut. So he jerked that door open in there, and boy, there's some thumping and trashing really went on that time. And it just sounded real bad. And then there's four of them brought him up there and throwed him out in the field. and then his woman he'd went in with, she come walking back out carrying her pocketbook, and he got up and he went, when he went in, his hair was combed pretty, he just looked like he'd been run over the truck. And me and my cousin just looked at each other, didn't say a word, just looked at each other and just turned around and left. I wasn't going in. I don't know what was going on there, but it wasn't my place.
well, you've never run a rough beer joint, have you?
No, I don't want one either.
I have. I bought the roughest beer joint in High Point, North Carolina.
Somehow I
one
can
time.
believe that.
I did the roughest one. I mean, you come in the first day I bought the place. I come in there, and this place had a restaurant certificate, okay? I come in there, and there this girl was with her shoes off and her feet up on the table. I said, didn't your mom and daddy raise you better than this? I said, get your damn feet off that table. Well, I insulted a bunch of them from the way they acted around there. But I think everybody in High Point come out there to see if they could give me a hard time. Well, I had an aluminum pole about that long. Mm-hmm. It wasn't solid aluminum. It was hollow, but it was good and stout. And I had me a taped handle on it. And that was my enforcer. They'd come out there and they would get to fighting in the booth. You get to fight with one another. Mm-hmm. And if I couldn't calm them down, I laid them all out in the floor and dragged them out in the yard, Well, it's a wonder somebody didn't cut me or shoot me or something, because I did a number of one. And about 10 years after I got rid of that place, I went in down the South Side, which was a beer joint. I knew a lot of people that went into South Side. I
understand.
And I went in there, and there sat this guy. And I said, how you doing? I remember his last name was Hill, I think, his first name first, in a minute. He was sitting there, and he looked at this guy over here and says, I want you to look in my head here. He looked in my head, the fellow looked at his head. He said, this guy here put 57 stitches in the top of my head, which I did. I had a little cook by the name of Earl.
A little cook by the name of Earl.
Earl was a real diminutive. He was small.
Okay.
And Earl couldn't read and write. Earl couldn't
Could he
read.
cook?
Earl couldn't read, and my waitress couldn't write. Okay, Beth, she couldn't write. She's a beautiful girl, but she couldn't write. You couldn't tell what she wrote. Well, we had some of the strangest combinations of plates coming out of that restaurant. Well, Earl was off one day, and this Hill guy that I'm telling you about, he's back there beating on little Earl. He'd slap Earl, do something. I said, James was his name. I said, James, you hit Earl one more time, I'm going to put your lights out. Went around to look back, and there he was, I slapping on Earl again. I took that aluminum pole and just laid him out. I hit him across the head like they took 57 stitches to
57?
close his head off.
Did you say 57?
57?
I thought you said 6 or 7 a minute ago.
57.
Yeah.
Okay. I knocked him cold and I dragged him out the damn door in the parking lot. I was mad at him, you know. And,
Sounded like you might have been a little upset with
well, I
him.
was. And somebody said, what you going to do? I said, I'm going to drag him down here in the I-85 and let the truck run over him. Well, I got him about halfway there, and he come to, he dragged him over that old rough gravel, and he getting up, he's wanting to fight again. I said, James, I'm going to put your lights out again. I said, you better go on and mind your own business. Well, he went on. He had a knife that time, but he knew I meant business. I was standing there with that aluminum pole, so he went on. But he was proud of the 57 stitches I put in his head. He had to show everybody at Southside where I put those stitches in his head. And that was back when I was in my mid-30s.
Back when you was in your prime, wasn't
Yeah,
it?
back in my mid-30s, and I didn't take a whole lot of stuff off of anybody.
And I've noticed you don't take a whole lot off of people now.
You'd be surprised. But I've enjoyed life, you know. I always,
Yes, that was a lot of fun when you got a long pole.
you know, I always thought if you would give good service and be courteous to people, that they would return it to you. But I found out run that beer joint, you could go by and say, shake the bottle about out, you want another beer? No, I don't want another beer. You get way down the other end of the restaurant and they'd yell, where's my damn beer, you know? I said, man, I just asked you if you wanted a beer, you know. But they'd fight one another. Awful fight. I'd make them get out. I didn't care if they fought as long as they fought outside. Then the next day they'd be in there buying one another a beer, you know. If I'm going to fight you today, I'm going to fight you tomorrow and the next day too, you know.
I was out there, I was in Montana, I reckon it's Montana, a little old town there. And I went in it's a little old store, and you could tell the building had been there a long time. They had a little store in there. I don't remember exactly what all was going on, but there's this girl and woman in there. I got to talking to her. I always like to find out about the place. She said, yeah, this is had the last gunfight right here we had in this town. And I said, well, how'd it work out? She said, these two fellers had an argument, and they went out there in the street and shot at each other and said neither one of them couldn't shoot. And after they'd pulled their triggers, they come back in here and had a beer. And that's the last gunfight we had in this town.
Yeah, I've been to some of those buildings, you know, when you come out of, what's that, Flagstaff, Arizona.
Yep.
Okay, they got some interesting drinking places. There's one called the White Horse Bar that I used to stop in.
Yeah, you need to go to Tombstone. I was there last summer.
Were you?
Yeah,
you
I didn't go over to the OK Corral. I heard the fella get shot over there for Clinton's is in town.
Probably. Yeah, my dad, my niece has my sister's picture, and one of them that she has is my daddy standing beside Sitting Bull. That was a Wild Bill Hickok.
Yep.
No,
No, you mean Buffalo Bill.
Buffalo Bill, yeah, Buffalo Bill's show that had
The Wild West.
Sitting Bull, yeah.
Yep.
And my dad had his picture taken with him. That was in the early 1900s.
Well, did you ever see Geronimo's Cadillac?
No, 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 I've heard about it.
I guess them was pretty good days. And then you know what? People think, well, you just want everything way to way. You get to saying, this ain't, I don't like the way things are going. Well, you just want everything, you don't want no progress. It ain't progress if you ain't happy, and it's hard to be happy in times like this. I was doing pretty good back when I was broke, and yeah, I was younger. But there wasn't so many people with their nose in my business. I could kind of do as I please. And now there's been a lot happening in 50 years. But can you imagine in the last 100 years? My daddy was born. They had invented airplanes, and your daddy they hadn't.
No,
but there wasn't none around here. My daddy was, I guess he was 7 or 8 years old when the first commercial radio station went on there. Can you imagine? There wasn't even a radio station back then.
Well, my mom and dad were married before ice cream was invented.
I didn't know there was anybody that old.
They were married in 1912.
That's when my daddy was born.
Okay, and I believe that's when they first had the first commercial ice cream.
Well, how do you? They didn't have a way to make it, so
Well, you've never sat on old.
Yeah, but where do you get the ice?
They made it in the wintertime.
Yeah, I know.
Well, now, we used to have an ice house. Now, you're talking about being cold. We had an ice house in North Carolina.
Yeah, but they hadn't had it too long. In 1912, they didn't have the equipment to freeze it with.
Right, no. But we had an ice house, and we'd put ice in there, and we'd put sawdust in between the different layers
Where
of
you
ice.
had it up in the winter?
Yeah.
Well, I was going to say, I was up there. There's a house in a state called Ashland up there in Richmond, Kentucky, where it was a Henry Clay, what do you call them things? Plantation.
Yeah.
And there's an ice house out there. And it's a big cellar is what it is. And I didn't go in there, let you go in, but it had a big front on it. It looked like, going in the front of a house.
Right.
And in the wintertime, the slaves would go out and saw the river up and haul it up there and pack it in sawdust, and they had ice year round. That's what they used to cool their stuff.
Right, yeah.
Them people figured out how to live in that. You ought to go see that sometime if you get a chance. But in that building, in that house, there's a I guess you'd call it a library. Every room in there has got a carved marble.
Fireplace.
Yeah.
Mantle.
Yeah. Yeah. And there in the center, a wing goes off this way and a wing goes off that way, and right here in the center is the library, and there's a fireplace in there. But there's a hall goes on both sides of it. You can walk all the way around that room, and that isolates the interior from the outside walls, so that stays warm. And the windows, and I don't remember exactly, you can see from in there outside, but I don't remember how the window system was. I don't remember whether the window I'm going to describe was in the library or on the outer wall. But the way the windows are made, they had glass in them, and the shutters slid back in the wall. And you could open up and look out, but when it was cold, you pulled this shutter out of the wall and it rolled right over there and closed it up.
Right.
You could stay warm in that library in cold weather.
Right.
And then they had fireplaces in every room in the house, bedroom, and upstairs.
Right.
They had fireplaces up there too. And they had more than money invested in fireplaces in the house it costs now.
Right.
Well, I don't know.
How would you fortune to build chimneys nowadays?
Yeah. And if you get that marble carved in Italy and bring it over here, it gets real expensive.
The Biltmore, have you been to the Biltmore Estate?
That's too stingy to go in. I've been to the front yard.
I've been to it a couple of times. In fact, I had a friend who had a friend that worked there, and we got to see some of the rooms that's never been open to the public, and because they only got, well, they got less than 100 rooms open, and there's 300 and some rooms in that house. And
You need to go out to Winchester House out in California where they just kept a building.
yeah, they had false stairways and everything else in there, didn't they?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Down there in somewhere around Miami, we was down there, and there's a I don't know what you call it, a monastery or what it was, but that there, William Randolph Hearst,
Okay.
I think he's the one had this done. They tore this thing down over there in Europe and carted it over here, and it's big chunks of rock now. I'm not talking about little bricks. I'm talking about weigh 1,000 pounds a piece.
Right.
And they hauled that over here and put it back together down there, reconstructed it.
Well, you know, they did that to the London Bridge.
I know you're going to say that. I was there last year.
Well, yeah.
That was the most unimpressive thing I ever seen. You ever seen it?
No.
I thought it'd be something really, spectacular, and they didn't make big deal of it out there. I mean, it's just a bridge.
Right.
I didn't get that. Of course, I think that was somebody thought they'd have a real tourist attraction if they
Right.
could bring it over here, and maybe they do and did, but I wasn't impressed with it.
Right. Well, I've been to the Biltmore House probably 3 or 4 times, and it is a marvel,
Yeah.
anybody would have enough money to build them a railroad up there to bring the material to build that house, and then after they got it built, to have the railway dismantled.
That's why they called it Biltmore, wasn't it? It built more this.
Vanderbilt,
Yeah.
That was George that built that. His daddy had money too, and
And now they have to farm it out just to keep the.
I believe I believe George Vanderbilt was a great uncle of the one who owns it now. I believe that's right. But it's a magnificent place, and like I say, he bought 5,000 acres up there. And
Now that's the way to do it. You buy you a bunch of land, but you don't necessarily build a big house in the middle of it. But you can get in there away from everybody else anyway. They got a dairy and everything there, don't they?
well, they used to market Biltmore
Yeah.
dairy milk a great deal. I don't know whether they still operate that dairy or not. I believe they do. They've got a winery there now, 'cause I know I used to go in there and get snookered tasting their wine, and so I just
You wanted to try a little bit of all of it, I guess, didn't you?
yeah, I had to do that.
I was up last week at Lily Pad, which is over on the Obie River.
Over
Man,
what?
Obie River. Now there's an Obed and an Ob. Anyway, I was over there. And out there in the middle of nowhere, up this little old gravelly path, I was looking for a campground. I got up there and the campground was closed. But there's a brewery up there. And this man and his wife and his family, they live up there in the summertime. And he's got a brewery. And they have you can go up there and buy their brew. And they can some too. You'd think they'd bottle it, but they can it. Now you can buy it in a can, two or three different flavors, and you can buy it by the mug. And they have just a bunch of sociable people get together there on the weekends, Friday and Saturday, and they have a meal there on Sunday, brunch. And it was a right interesting place. An old guy, he was from. Well, he told me it was East Tennessee, but I don't remember which town it was. He went to school at UT, and he just, he said he got interested in brewing, and he just went up there, and they started that thing. Look, we're doing pretty good. It's a really interesting place.
Right.
But the campground was closed. About everything's closed anymore. They're going to get afraid to get the Kung Flu,
Right.
or it's too complicated to operate it during Kung Flu.
Right.
But there was another campground over there. I went up there, and it was up there in the middle of a cow pasture on top of the hill. That was last Friday night, and it come a frost. The first one I'd seen this year, it looked like it had snowed up there the next morning.
Right. Well, you were a little bit south of here, weren't you?
Yeah, it's
But you were elevation.
well, no, I was north of here. That is up. It's Fentress County, out from Jamestown.
Okay, all right.
Not that far. It's about the same latitude, a little bit further north.
Right. Okay.
But it is probably a little higher in elevation. I know up there on that hill, it was just a bare. There wasn't no trees around. It was right up there right at the top of the knoll. It was a pretty place,
Right.
but it sure did frost.
Were you in your little camper?
Yeah.
Okay. You got insulated good?
Partly. I'm not, on purpose, I've not insulated it too much because I really don't need it now. And I was kind of waiting to make sure I had all the wires and shelves and things where I wanted them before I
Right.
started hiding the wall.
Right.
But I've got, it ain't insulated. It's got some insulation in it, but you couldn't call it insulated, just a sidewall.
Right.
But I've got the stuff to finish it up. I'm just waiting till I get ready.
Yeah, I'm probably going to insulate that thing I got down there, little trailer.
Well, now I've got 2 carbon monoxide alarms in there, but I don't want it airtight because I use propane in
Right.
it, and I don't want it so tight that
You
I'll smother to death.
need to put your,
Got 2,
do you?
yeah.
Okay. You got to wait for the air to come in.
Well, that's why I ain't insulating it too tight. I got 2 windows in it, but I hope not to have to keep them open.
Right.
There's one on each end and got a
Right.
fan.
You have to be careful. You can get taken away by that. You know.
Well, wake up dead, but I've used propane heat like that for years, but I don't trust this one carbon monoxide alarm. I got 2. I've set them off. Used to get in that truck. If I went to sleep with the heater on, and it was one of them catalytic heaters. Wasn't
Right.
supposed to do that, but I've set the
Alarm out.
3 or 4 times. I wake up but I think it was because of where it was at. I don't think it was the carbon monoxide. I think it was getting too hot where it was at. I know I was.
Right.
Them there little old My Buddy heaters will burn you up.
Right. Yeah, I found one. It's not a Mr. Heater, okay? But it's built like it. The only difference is it's got a heat thing like this that will flip over
Yeah,
and make a stove.
yeah.
I mean, it's got what you clamp on there, you know, to put your pots and everything on. So you flip over and make a stove. It's intentional that way.
Well, what I use, because you can control it so well, I use a little cooker stove, little
Right.
propane. You know,
Right.
got a place to set your pot on and
Right,
everything.
right.
And I use that because you can turn it way down.
Right.
And them are, and that's not what they're designed for. But them are My Buddies that are made for that. They've got 2 settings. They got burn you up and roast you.
Yeah, yeah. Well, this one, I believe, is made in Italy, the one I got, and it can turn down real low, you know, and like if you want to simmer something.
Yeah.
And the only problem I had was it come with a 3/8-inch fitting, and about all of your propane connections around here are 1/4 inch. So,
I know where you can get a guy to fix it for you.
oh, I do too. I done fixed it. Yeah, I done fixed it. I went down to Digger's old place. And,
Yeah. That's what I was going to say. I've been buying my propane at Walmart, not here, but other places, because it's hard to find propane out on the road. Go to Walmart. I found it for about $14 for 15 pounds.
Right.
And you get it some places, them exchange things, that's them there blue dinosaurs or whatever they are. But they, most time, I mean, a lot of places it's 17, 18, 19.95
Right.
exchange plus tax.
Right.
But go down there to Diggers and you can get it.
$14, and you get more than 15 pounds.
You get 20 pounds.
Yeah, you get 20 pounds. That helps out. Well, I'm probably going to be doing some little traveling here before I get too old to drive or anything. You know, I got me some glasses.
You did?
Yeah, because...
Well, you surprised what you were seeing?
Well, I didn't see
Need to get you some earphones.
I didn't see as far down the road
Yeah.
as I needed to see. And...
You can see the moon, can't you?
Yeah, but you know, I can read this, you know, in this dim light here. I can read that, you know, but I couldn't see way down the road, you know. So that's one of the reasons that I guess I wasn't paying attention and sniffed up on that
Yeah,
18
man
wheel.
can't see a semi.
But did I tell you, I was in Georgia, clear day, nothing to cause me to hit that truck other than my negligence, that I did not get a ticket.
How come?
Well, I don't know. You ever seen my driver's license?
No, I
It
wasn't
says-
sure you had it.
It says Bobby Talmadge
Yeah.
Andrews. Well, people still live in fear of the Talmadges down there, okay? I'm
Okay.
serious. And I saw him when I handed him my license. There's a girl, she showed it to the other guy who showed it to the other guy, you know, and they got their heads together, and I never got a ticket.
Could I borrow him the next time I go somewhere?
Go to Georgia, you know. I forget who it was on television, said the meanest man he ever knew was Herman Talmadge. Well, Herman Talmadge was my mama's first cousin, and would make him my second cousin, you know. And I don't know him, I never met him. But he said the meanest man he ever knew that was in politics was Herman Talmadge. And so help me, I did not get a ticket. I've never got a letter or anything about it. Of course, my insurance company paid off. But I was just thinking maybe when they passed my driver's license around, they saw that Talmadge in the middle of my name. So it might have influenced them a little bit.
I don't know. You may hear from them when they see this.
Right. But I was within seeing distance of the Tennessee line when I had that accident. Tennessee line was about as far.
But could you see that far? Could you see that
They
far?
just said it was up there. Oh, well, I've had a good life. That's the first really road accident I've ever had. And,
I remember that time that fella snuck up on you on the wrong side of the road up here and then stuck you with the damage.
yeah, that's when I was pulling out of the parking place. They come up the road on the wrong side.
Yeah.
And then tried to get my insurance company to pay for their damages. Oh, Lord.
Well, they said you pulled out in front of him. I guess you did. Man driving on the wrong side of the road, he's taking his chances, though.
He wasn't even in the road. He was coming up the sidewalk.
Yeah.
Up the shoulder of the
Well,
road.
wasn't his cousin the one wrote the tickets up?
I think so.
Yeah, it's always good to keep it in the family.
Yeah, coming up the road on the wrong side of the road. That's what they say. People from England get run over here in the United States a lot of times because they drive on the wrong side of the road, and it says that when we start to cross the road, the first thing we do is look to the left. Well, the first thing they do is look to the right
Yeah.
and walk out in front of a car.
I tell you what, that's just amazing how many people that's got cars that don't know how to drive. They don't. You take a bus load of people and try to get them to explain to you who goes first at the intersection, and they won't be 3 people in 100 have enough sense to figure it out.
Why? That's true.
And if you try to do it right, you'll get run over. You know, if you try to actually, that person's over here and I'm here and I need to go over here and go behind them, they'll run over you.
Well, I know, especially down here where you turn into Sawmill Holler.
Mm-hmm.
That's very dangerous
Yep.
because if you're not careful, somebody will cream you there.
Mm-hmm. I was down there coming out of the mall one day. I was going down the road, one way or the other, and there's this old guy coming out of the mall, and he was trying to go over to Shell, and the light had changed. There's this crossroad and then the 4-lane, and he was trying to go from Food City over to Shell,
Right.
and the light had changed, and there's a bunch of people here wanting to go left. And he's supposed to go first because he's
Right.
going straight.
Right.
Well, he's just sitting there, and this the whole crowd is going left in front of him, and he's just sitting there trying to get across the road, and I watching him. They finally, and everybody hollered out. He went on across. He's supposed to go on first.
Yeah. The fella about got me run over. Yeah. I went to Food City last night, probably about 7. Well, after I left here, and I was getting ready to come out there on the lower end of the parking lot there, go left, then go back across to the right in Sawmill Holler.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I was sitting there with my turn signal on, and was sitting there, and this fella pulls up in the medium there. He sees me sitting there with my light turned on, Ordinarily, he would wait and let me go across because I had been sitting there. But he pulled up, and he about creamed me when I went across there. I said, I wish to hell he had to hit me, but he was determined he was going to go first, which he could have if I'd known he wanted to. But I just figured common courtesy, I'm sitting there with my light on, left turn signal, he pulls in there. But no, he decided he'd take his way across there first, and we just about...
Yeah, you see plenty of people drive
But,
like that.
I guess everything will be all right. I've been driving for 70 years. And
I've been driving for 55, 50, almost 60. I've been driving for 60 years.
how you had?
Yeah, I have.
Legally,
No, I didn't say I drove legal.
Oh, and now if you go back to when I started driving, I've been driving for almost 80 years.
Well, I've been driving legal for
I've been driving legal.
55 years.
I've been driving legal for a little over 70 years.
I've been aiming longer than that. You got anything else you want to do,
No,
Bob?
I
We
think
about
pretty
got
well.
our hour
I'm
in.
gonna go home and see if I can't round up some grub.
Well, good luck with it.
We'll see.
Tell me when we're done. Here, bye, everybody.
We'll see everybody next week.